They say air travel is stressful, but Dr. Ella Reed was about to learn the true meaning of turbulence before she even left the ground. Standing at gate K19, holding a valid ticket, she was publicly branded a fraud by a smirking gate manager. He laughed at her, tore her boarding pass in two, and told her, "People like you don't belong in this cabin." But he made one critical mistake. He didn't just humiliate a black woman, he humiliated the wife of one of the FAA's top investigators. And her husband? He was already in the building. The hum of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport was a dull roar, a familiar kind of purgatory. Dr. Ella Reed shifted the weight of her carry-on, the strap digging into the shoulder of her tailored blazer. She was exhausted, but it was a good kind of tired. The kind that comes after 3 days of giving a keynote speech and 2 workshops at one of the country's most prestigious neurology conferences. Her work on peripheral nerve regeneration was getting traction, and she felt that familiar spark of professional pride. But now, that was over. The blazer, the lanyard still tucked in her bag, the polite academic smiles, she was ready to shed it all. All she wanted was home. Home was Washington, D.C. Home was her quiet street in Alexandria. Home was her 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who had probably negotiated 3 bedtime stories out of the babysitter. And home was Henry. Her phone buzzed, a text from him. "Landed at DCA, heading home to relieve Sarah. Lily is still awake, claims she can't sleep until she's briefed you on a caterpillar situation. I love you. Be safe." A small smile touched Ella's lips. "Just got to the gate. Boarding soon. Love you more. Tell Lily the caterpillar is under advisement." She looked up at the sign. Global Airways Fortran Tutu, Washington, D.C., DCA. Boarding. The line for Group 2 was a tangled mess of leisure travelers and road warrior business types, all equally grim-faced. Ella took her place, pulling up her boarding pass on her phone. The blue and white QR code gleamed on the screen. Seat 12A. A window seat. Just as she liked. She had booked this flight 6 weeks ago. It was routine. The gate agent, a harried-looking woman named Sandra, was scanning tickets with robotic efficiency. But she wasn't the one Ella's eyes were drawn to. Standing behind the main podium, arms crossed, was a man in a manager's uniform. His name tag read, Chad Larson, Gate Supervisor. He had a kind of restless, pinched energy, his eyes darting over the crowd like a hawk looking for prey. He barked at a family trying to consolidate their carry-ons. "Sir, that's 2 items. You know the policy. You'll have to gate check one. Step aside." The father, flustered, stammered an apology and shuffled his family out of line, his children looking confused. Ella felt a familiar prickle of annoyance. The power trip agents. They were the worst part of travel. They held a tiny, fleeting dominion over a few square feet of linoleum, and they wielded it like a scepter. She kept her head down, scrolling through emails, trying to detach. The line moved. Finally, it was her turn. She stepped up to the podium where Sandra was scanning. "Good evening," Ella said, holding out her phone. Sandra scanned it. A sharp, negative beep echoed from the machine. Sandra frowned. Let me try that again." She scanned it. "Beep!" Ella's smile tightened. "Is there a problem?" "It's not reading your seat, Ma'am. Let me type it in." She pecked at the keyboard. Her frown deepened. "Ella Reed?" "Yes, Dr. Ella Reed. Seat 12A. Confirmation is LK47G. "Yeah, I don't see you here." Before Ella could respond, Chad Larson swooped in, shouldering Sandra aside. "What's the problem, Sandra? We're behind schedule." "This passenger's ticket isn't validating, Mr. Larson." Chad, a man in his late 40s with thinning blonde hair and a sour turn to his mouth, looked at Ella. He didn't just look at her, he sized her up. He took in her dark skin, her neat twists, her expensive-looking, but travel-worn blazer. His eyes lingered on her designer handbag, a gift from Henry. A flicker of something, disdain, suspicion, crossed his features before he masked it with a professional veneer so thin it was transparent. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dripping with false patience. "Can I see your phone?" Ella handed it to him. He squinted at the screen, his thumb swiping aggressively. "This is the Global Airways app?" he asked, his tone implying it was a crayon drawing. "Yes, of course it is. You can see the flight number right there. GA 422. "A lot of things look real," he mused. He typed her name into his own terminal. Clack, clack, clack. He stared at the screen, then let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a laugh of humor. It was a laugh of, "I caught you." "Well, there's your problem," he said, projecting his voice for the growing line to hear. Ella's stomach tightened. "What problem?" "You're not on this flight." "That's impossible. I just checked in this morning. I have a seat assignment. 12A. "According to my system," Chad said, tapping his screen with a self-satisfied finger. "Seat 12A belongs to a Mr. James Finnegan, and Dr. Ella Reed isn't on the manifest at all. Not in economy, not in business, not anywhere." A cold dread, sharp and familiar, began to creep up Ella's spine. This was more than a technical glitch. This was a confrontation. "That is a mistake," she said, keeping her voice level, firm. "I am a Platinum Medallion member. I flew in on this airline. Here is my confirmation email. Here is my baggage claim ticket from my checked bag." She began to pull up the email, but Chad held up a hand. "Ma'am, please, I don't have time for this." He pushed her phone back across the counter at her. "The line is building. People are trying to get home." "I am trying to get home," Ella said, her voice rising a fraction. "There is clearly a system error. Can you please call a ticketing agent, or check your master manifest?" Chad sighed, a deeply theatrical, put-upon sound. He turned to the other passengers in line, who were now openly staring. "Folks, apologies for the delay. We just have a situation here. Someone trying to board with a ticket that isn't valid." The word hung in the air. Invalid. Ella's blood ran cold. He wasn't saying it was an error. He was saying it was a fraud. "Are you accusing me of something, Mr. Larson?" He turned back, his smile gone, replaced by a mask of managerial authority. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything, ma'am. I'm just stating a fact. This QR code you're showing me," he tapped her phone screen, "is a fake." The words "fake ticket" seemed to suck the air out of the gate area. The murmur of conversation stopped. The passenger behind Ella, a woman in a pink tracksuit, Ella would later remember her name was Brenda, huffed impatiently. "Oh, for goodness sake, just step aside." Ella's face burned. She felt the invisible, crushing weight of 100 eyes, all judging, all assuming. She was now the problem. She was the black woman making a scene. "This is not a fake ticket," Ella stated, her voice dangerously quiet. She was a doctor. She was a scientist. She dealt in facts. "This is a ticket, purchased with my credit card, linked to my frequent flyer account, for which I have a confirmation, a receipt, and a checked bag somewhere in this airport system." She held up her phone again. "Here is the email from Global Airways, sent 2 days ago, confirming my itinerary." Chad didn't even look at it. He crossed his arms. "Ma'am, anyone can mock up an email. Anyone can screenshot a QR code. The system, the one I'm looking at right here, says you do not have a seat. It says you are not a passenger. For all I know, you just walked up here from the food court." "I went through TSA," Ella shot back, her composure cracking. "They scanned this exact boarding pass not 30 minutes ago. It's linked to my ID. You can't get through security with a fake ticket." This, finally, seemed to give Chad a moment's pause. He hadn't considered that. But he recovered quickly, his smirk returning. TSA's system is separate from ours. They check your ID against a name. They don't verify payment or seat assignment. You probably bought a refundable ticket, used it to get through security, and then cancelled it. We see it all the time. People trying to get to the premium gates to shop or to meet someone. His eyes drifted to her handbag again. Or maybe you're trying to scam your way into a free flight. Either way, you're not getting on this one. The accusation was so vile, so layered with racist and classist assumptions, that Ella was momentarily speechless, that he would accuse her of this. She, who had just delivered a lecture on cellular mitosis to a room of 500 PhDs. The absurdity was staggering. Get your supervisor, Ella finally managed, her voice shaking with a cold fury. Chad's smile widened. He tapped his own name tag. You're looking at him. I am the gate supervisor for this entire wing. And I am telling you, Dr. Reed, he said, using air quotes around her title, that you need to step away from my podium. You are delaying the boarding of a federal aircraft. Then fix the problem, Ella insisted. Look at my return ticket. I flew in on Global 419 on Tuesday. My name must be in your system. Sandra, Chad snapped, ignoring Ella completely. Start boarding Group 3. Just walk around her. Sandra, looking terrified, nodded and opened the Group 3 lane. Group 3, you can now board. Passengers began to shuffle past Ella, their faces a mix of pity, annoyance, and suspicion. Brenda, the woman in the pink tracksuit, brushed past her. Some people are so entitled, she muttered, loud enough for Ella to hear. Evelyn felt trapped. She was in a bureaucratic nightmare designed by a petty tyrant. She could feel the tears of frustration welling, and she hated it. She would not cry in front of this man. Mr. Larson, she tried one last time, her voice pleading. My daughter is at home. My husband is waiting for me. I have to be on this flight. There has been a terrible mistake. The only mistake, Chad said, leaning in close, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, was you thinking this would work. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it's over. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time to leave the boarding area. If you refuse, I will call airport security and have you removed. You can't be serious. Try me. He pointed a thick finger past her, toward the terminal. Go. Go back to the main ticketing counter and buy a real ticket. This flight is full. It's not full. You just told me my seat was given to a James Finnegan. That means my seat was double booked. That is your airline's error, and you are legally required to compensate me and find me another flight. She was grasping at policy, at logic. Chad's face darkened. He had been enjoying the power, but now she was questioning his authority. You know what? He said, his voice loud again. I'm done with this. He reached across the podium and snatched her physical passport, which she'd been holding with her phone. Hey, Ella cried, reaching for it. He held it aloft, out of her reach. This passport might be as fake as your ticket. I'm holding this. I'm calling security. He turned his back to her and picked up the gate phone. This was the moment. The line had frozen. Everyone was watching. She was being publicly detained. Her identity, her professionalism, her very presence had been nullified by one man on a power trip. She was shaking, not with fear, but with a righteous, seismic anger. You have no right, she whispered. I have every right, he said, the phone to his ear. Hello, security. This is Chad Larson at K-19. I have a 419 in progress. A passenger with fraudulent documents, refusing to leave the gate. Yes, a black female, mid-40s, black blazer. Yes, Hostile. Hostile, that was the word. The final nail. He had branded her. Ella backed away from the podium, her mind racing. Security would come. They would believe him. They always believed the man in the uniform. She would be detained. She would miss her flight. She would be in a holding room, explaining her credentials to officers who didn't care. She fumbled for her phone, which she still clutched in her hand. Her fingers, slick with sweat, almost dropped it. She swiped to her favorites list. Chad was still on the phone, glancing at her with a look of pure triumph. Yeah, better hurry. She's getting agitated. Ella pressed the name at the top of the list. It rang once, twice. Come on, Henry. Pick up. He answered on the third ring. His voice was calm, professional. Hey, Eve, you boarding? Tears finally broke free. Henry, she choked out. It's happening again. But it's worse. It's so much worse. There was a half-second of silence on the line. Henry Reed was a man who processed information with terrifying speed. He didn't ask what was happening. He just absorbed the, "It's happening again." This was their code. It meant she was being targeted, profiled, and was in a situation she couldn't de-escalate on her own. "Where are you?" His voice had changed. The warm husband was gone, replaced by the man who audited airlines for a living. It was cold, precise, and dangerous. "Gate K-19. O'Hare, Global Airways 422 to DCA," Ella whispered, turning her back to the podium to get a sliver of privacy. The other passengers were now giving her a wide berth, as if she were radioactive. "What's the name of the agent?" "Chad Larson. He's the gate supervisor. Henry, he said my ticket is fake. He gave my seat away. And he took my passport. He just called security on me. He told them I was hostile." Another pause. This one was shorter, harder. She could hear the click of a car door shutting on his end. She heard the beep of a keycard. "I'm at O'Hare, Ella." Her head snapped up. "What? I thought... You texted you were at DCA." "I was. I landed at DCA. I took Lily home, and I got a priority call. There's a major systems audit happening here. At O'Hare. I've been here for 3 hours. I'm in the Terminal 2 Operations Center right now." Ella could have collapsed in relief. He wasn't just in the city. He was in the building. "Henry, listen to me, Ella. Do exactly as I say. Do not speak to Chad Larson anymore. Do not speak to the other passengers. If security approaches you, be polite, state your name, but do not answer any other questions. Tell them your husband is on his way, and he is an FAA representative. Do you understand?" "Yes. Yes, I understand." "Who is with me?" Henry's voice asked, muffled, to someone else. "Morales and Thompson. Good. Grab your vests. We have a Code 3 incident at Kilo 19, Global Airways." Ella's eyes widened. "Vests? Henry, what's going on?" "You just became part of a much larger investigation, Eve. Stay calm. I am 5 minutes away. Put me on speaker. Hold the phone up." "What? Why?" "Just do it." Ella took a deep breath, wiped her eyes, and turned back to face the podium. Chad was off the phone, looking immensely pleased with himself. "Security is on its way, Doctor," he sneered. "Last chance to walk away on your own." Ella held up her phone, her hand rock steady now. She pressed the speaker button. "Mr. Larson." Henry Reed's voice boomed from the tiny speaker, cutting through the gate area chatter like a foghorn. Chad's smirk faltered. He looked at the phone, confused. "Who is this?" "My name is Henry Reed," the voice said, loud and clear. "I am Dr. Reed's husband. I am also a senior investigator with the Federal Aviation Administration, Office of Aviation Safety. I am currently in this airport, and I am on my way to your gate." The color drained from Chad Larson's face. It was as if a plug had been pulled. Yeah, right, Chad scoffed, but his voice was an octave higher. The bravado was paper-thin. Nice try. Your husband is FAA, sure, lady, and I'm the Pope. Brenda, the woman in the pink tracksuit, who was still close enough to hear, snorted. Unbelievable! Now she's threatening him. Mr. Larson, Henry's voice continued, utterly devoid of emotion. You are currently in possession of United States passport, number 51388 XAXX, belonging to Dr. Ella Reed. You have confiscated this federal document under no legal authority. You have also, according to Dr. Reed, denied her boarding based on a fake ticket, despite her valid TSA clearance. This is a secure area, sir. I can't discuss this with you over the phone, Chad stammered. You won't be for long. I am formally instructing you, as an FAA official, to not move. Do not touch your terminal. Do not attempt to alter any passenger records. And you will return my wife's passport to her, right now. I can't do that, it's evidence! Chad was grasping, his eyes darting toward the terminal entrance, hoping security would arrive before whatever this was. It's evidence of your violation, Mr. Larson. Hand her the passport. Chad was trapped. The entire gate of passengers was watching this surreal showdown. His authority was evaporating. He looked at the blue passport in his hand as if it were a bomb. I will wait for security, he decided, trying to regain his footing. They can sort this out. Security has been rerouted, Mr. Larson, Henry's voice said, and now it sounded closer. They've been instructed to defer to my team. And then, from down the concourse, Ella heard it. The rapid, authoritative thud, thud, thud of heavy-soled shoes on the floor. It wasn't a run. It was a march. Chad heard it too. His head snapped toward the sound. The crowd in the terminal parted instinctively. First came two men in dark blue polos with FAA emblazoned on the back and Inspector on the front. One was a sharp-featured Hispanic man, Morales. The other, a broad-shouldered black man, Thompson. They looked like they ate rule breakers for breakfast. And walking between them, his face a mask of controlled fury, was Henry Reed. He was in a crisp suit, but he wore an official FAA lanyard and a badge clipped to his belt. He was tall, imposing, and he only had eyes for Ella. He walked straight to her, ignoring Chad, ignoring the gasping passengers. He put his hands on her shoulders. Are you all right? Ella nodded, the wordless relief so profound she felt her knees weaken. He kept one hand on her back, steadying her, and then he turned. He looked at Chad Larson. It was not the look of a husband. It was the look of a federal investigator who had just found Exhibit A. Mr. Chad Larson? Henry asked, though it wasn't a question. Chad's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. His face was the color of spoiled milk. I am Henry Reed, FAA. He held up his badge. These are Inspectors Morales and Thompson. We were already in this terminal conducting a compliance audit on Global Airways ground operations. He paused, letting the words sink in. You, Henry said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly soft level, just made our job so much easier. Now, where is my wife's passport? The world of Gate K-19 had shrunk. The passengers, the distant announcements, the hum of the jets outside, it all faded into a muffled background. The only thing that was real was the cold, focused silence emanating from the three men in official attire. Chad Larson, who just minutes before had been a king on his little linoleum throne, now looked like a schoolboy caught setting a fire. His hands were shaking. He fumbled behind the counter and produced Ella's passport, holding it out. Henry didn't take it. Inspector Thompson, Henry said, never taking his eyes off Chad. Please retrieve Dr. Reed's property. Thompson, who looked like he could bench press the entire podium, stepped forward. He didn't just take the passport, he plucked it from Chad's trembling fingers with 2 fingers, as if handling contaminated material. He examined it, opened it, and then handed it respectfully to Ella. Dr. Reed. "Thank you," she murmured, clutching it. "Mr. Larson," Henry continued, "you called security for a hostile passenger with fraudulent documents. That's a serious claim. It implies a breach of security and potential federal offenses. We're going to need to see the evidence you based this on." The scanner," Chad stammered, pointing at the small machine Sandra had used. "It beeped. It came up invalid. And her name. It wasn't on the manifest. I swear." "Inspector Morales," Henry said. "Get on his terminal. Pull the logs for GA 422. Cross-reference the PNR for seat 12A. Morales, who already had a tablet out, nodded. "Already on it, sir. Their system is interesting." He moved behind the counter, gently easing the pale-faced Sandra out of the way. "Mr. Larson, your login, please." I can't. I don't." "Your login. Now," Thompson growled. Chad, defeated, typed in his credentials. Morales's fingers flew across the keyboard. Well, Morales said after a moment. "Here's the problem, and it's a big one." Henry looked at him. "Explain." "Seat 12A was, in fact, assigned to Dr. Ella Reed," Morales announced, his voice clear and projecting for everyone to hear. "PNR LK47G. Ticket paid in full 6 weeks ago. TSA checkpoint cleared at 14:22 local time, as she said." Ella felt a vindication so sharp it almost made her dizzy. "But," Morales continued, "at 14:50, just 20 minutes ago, Seat 12A was manually unassigned from Dr. Reed and reassigned to a Mr. James Finnegan. Mr. Finnegan was on the standby list. He paid a $250 last-minute upgrade fee." The entire gate area gasped. Brenda, the woman in pink, put a hand to her mouth. Henry Reed's eyes narrowed into slits. "Manually unassigned. By whom, Inspector?" Morales typed another command. The screen flashed. "Authorization code 90B, Chad Larson." A collective "ooh" sound came from the waiting passengers. Chad Larson stopped breathing. He was caught, red-handed. It wasn't an error. It wasn't a glitch. It was malice. It was fraud. No, Chad panicked. That's a mistake. I didn't... Maybe I hit the wrong button. I was trying to fix her ticket and you just happened to fix it by giving it to a standby passenger who paid a cash upgrade fee?" Henry asked, his voice silk. "A fee that doesn't appear to be logged in the system yet. Where is that $250, Mr. Larson? In your pocket?" Chad turned sheet white. He was backing away, bumping into the wall of luggage scanners. This is airline business," he pleaded. "This isn't an FAA matter. This is a customer service dispute." "You made it an FAA matter," Henry said, stepping closer, "when you accused a passenger of a security breach. You made it an FAA matter when you illegally confiscated a federal passport. And you definitely made it an FAA matter when you manually overrode a secure passenger manifest. A direct violation of the Secure Flight Program." Henry turned to Inspector Thompson. "Mr. Thompson, if you would." Thompson pulled out a pair of zip-tie handcuffs. "No, wait!" Chad shrieked, his voice cracking. "You can't! I'm just a gate agent. You have no authority." "My authority," Henry said, "comes from Title 49 of the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, which you just violated. You have knowingly falsified passenger records, which is a federal offense. But right now, we're just detaining you for airport police on suspicion of theft and fraud." Thompson moved efficiently, pulling Chad's arms behind his back. The zip of the cuffs was the loudest sound in the terminal. Chad Larson, the petty tyrant of K-19, was now a trembling, sobbing mess. I have a family. Please, it was a mistake. I was stressed. We're understaffed." "Tell it to your superiors," Henry said dismissively. He turned his back on the cuffed man, a gesture of finality. Just then, two things happened at once. The two uniformed airport police officers Chad had originally called finally jogged up, looking confused, and behind them, running in sensible heels, was a woman in a sharp executive suit. "What in God's name is going on here?" she yelled, her eyes wide with horror at the scene. Her manager in cuffs, a plane load of passengers watching, and 3 men with FAA badges controlling her gate. She saw Henry, and her face went, if possible, even paler than Chad's. "Mr. Reed," she breathed. "Amelia Sinclair, VP of Midwest Operations for Global. I was told you were auditing Terminal 1 today." "Our audit expanded, Miss Sinclair," Henry said, his tone glacial. "We had reports of irregularities at this hub, and it seems we just found the source. Your Mr. Larson here has been caught red-handed, committing manifest fraud, likely theft, and has illegally detained a passenger and confiscated her passport, all seemingly on the basis of her race." Amelia Sinclair looked from Henry to the cuffed Chad, and then, finally, to Ella. Her eyes widened as she recognized the name on the complaint file she'd been meaning to read. No, it couldn't be. "Dr. Reed," she whispered, the professional horror dawning on her. "Oh no." Ella just stared at her, her expression unreadable. "This man," Ella said, her voice shaking but clear, "publicly humiliated me. He called me a liar and a thief. He tore up my boarding pass. He laughed at me. And he did it all in the name of Global Airways." Amelia Sinclair looked like she was going to be physically ill. The potential lawsuits, the DOT fines, the press. And this wasn't just any passenger. This was the wife of the man who could ground her entire fleet. "Mr. Reed, Dr. Reed," Amelia stammered. This is a grotesque misunderstanding. A rogue employee." "It's not a misunderstanding, Miss Sinclair. It's a pattern," Henry said. "Inspector Morales, what did our preliminary file show?" Morales, still at the terminal, read from his tablet. "In the last 6 months, Mr. Larson has been flagged 14 times for customer-initiated seating disputes. In all 14 cases, the original passenger was a person of color. In all 14 cases, their seat was lost and resold to a standby passenger. This airline has a systemic problem, Ms. Sinclair, and Mr. Larson isn't a rogue employee. He's a symptom." The airport police officers, now fully briefed by Thompson, took a struggling Chad Larson by the arms. "Please," Chad begged Amelia. "Amelia, tell them, I'm a good employee, 20 years. Amelia Sinclair couldn't even look at him. "Get him out of here," she whispered to the police. As they dragged him away, his wails of, "I didn't do anything," echoed down the concourse, a pathetic end to his reign of terror. There was a dead silence. The passengers for GA 422 were still standing, mouths agape. Henry turned to his wife. His face softened instantly. "Ella, the flight is still boarding." Ella shook her head. I don't know if I can. I don't want to fly on this airline." "I understand," Henry said. He turned to the stricken VP. "Ms. Sinclair, you have a choice. You can either find my wife a private charter to get her home, or you can demonstrate, right now, what Global Airways does to fix an error of this magnitude." Amelia sprang into action. Of course! Sandra!" she yelled at the original agent who was hiding near the wall. "Stop boarding. Reopen the first-class manifest." She turned to Ella, her face a mask of frantic apology. "Dr. Reed, you will be in seat 1A. Your original seat, 12A, will remain empty for this flight. We will comp your entire trip. Miles, vouchers, anything. My God, I am so sorry." Ella just looked at her. "I don't want your vouchers, Miss Sinclair. I want this to never happen to anyone else." "It won't," Amelia promised, her voice desperate. "I give you my personal word. We will cooperate fully with the FAA investigation. Fully." "You don't have a choice," Henry said flatly. "Inspectors Morales and Thompson are staying here. They are impounding this terminal. Your logs, your employee records, everything. You'll be hearing from our legal department." He then offered his arm to Ella. "Let's go home." Ella took his arm. They bypassed the rest of the line, Henry scanning her original, fake QR code on his own high-level device. It beeped. Green. They walked down the jet bridge, leaving the chaos, the apologies, and the shambles of Chad Larson's career behind them. The plane was silent as they boarded, the first-class attendant greeting them with a look of pure, unadulterated terror. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Reed, Mr. Reed," she whispered. As Ella settled into the plush leather of seat 1A, the adrenaline finally began to fade, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. Henry sat beside her in 1B. The cabin door hissed shut. Henry took her hand. His was warm and strong. "You okay?" he asked quietly. The federal agent gone, her husband returned. Ella leaned her head against the headrest and closed her eyes. A single hot tear traced its way down her cheek. "I am now," she whispered. "Thank you for being my cavalry." "Always," he replied, squeezing her hand as the plane finally began to push back from the gate. The 90-minute flight to Washington, D.C. was the quietest Ella had ever experienced. The flight attendants in first class treated her and Henry with a deference that bordered on reverence. Their champagne glasses were never empty. The pilot himself came on the PA system, not with the usual "welcome aboard," but with a stiff, formal, "Apologies for our ground-side delay, folks. We, had an unexpected personnel issue that has been resolved." Ella and Henry didn't talk much. They just held hands. Ella watched the clouds turn from pink to deep indigo as the sun set. She was processing. The humiliation, the rage, the sudden, shocking deliverance. She had been profiled before. Ticket agents who asked to see 3 forms of ID, flight attendants who forgot her drink order. But this was a new level of malice. To be called a fraud, to have her passport, her very identity, stolen by a man in a uniform. Henry was quiet, but she could see the muscles in his jaw working. He was still furious. His job was to protect the integrity of the skies, and that included the people in them. What had happened to Ella was not just a personal affront. It was a catastrophic failure of the system he was sworn to uphold. "He really tore up my pass," Ella said quietly, staring out the window. "He just ripped it in 2. The paper one I'd printed." "I know, Eve," Henry said, his voice tight. "And he's going to pay for it." What actually happens to him, and to the airline?" "Chad Larson," Henry said, taking a sip of his seltzer water, "is in a world of trouble. The airport police took him into custody on our recommendation. He'll be charged by the state's attorney for, at minimum, theft of property, the upgrade fee, and unlawful detainment for taking your passport. He's fired. His 20-year career is over, effective tonight. He'll be blacklisted from working for any airline, probably in any airport, for life." Ella nodded slowly. It felt like justice. "But that's just him," Henry continued. "The airline, global. This is bad for them. Our audit wasn't a secret. They knew we were looking into irregularities. What happened to you in front of a plane full of witnesses with 3 FAA investigators walking right into it? That's not a smoking gun. That's a nuclear bomb. Amelia Sinclair knows that by tomorrow morning our office will be filing a formal notice of investigation and the Department of Transportation will be opening a civil rights case. We're not talking about a slap on the wrist, Eve. We're talking millions in fines. We're talking federally mandated retraining for every single employee in their company. We're talking a consent decree that puts them on probation for the next 5 years. We will own them, and they know they deserve it. Ella finally let out a long, shaky breath. Good. When they landed at DCA, it was late. The terminal was quiet. They walked in silence to the baggage claim. Ella's priority-tagged bag was the first one out. Henry took it. They walked to the parking garage, the sterile quiet a balm after the chaos of O'Hare. In the car, Henry turned to her before starting the engine. "I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner," he said, his voice thick. "Henry, you got there like a superhero. You were amazing, and a little terrifying." He let out a short laugh. "I save the terrifying for work, and for anyone who messes with my wife." He leaned over and kissed her, a long, deep kiss that tasted of relief and homecoming. "Welcome home, Dr. Reed." The next morning, Ella woke up in her own bed. The sun was streaming through the curtains. She heard the distant sound of cartoons and the smell of pancakes. She got up, put on her robe, and went downstairs. Henry was at the stove, and Lily was at the kitchen table, meticulously drawing. "Mommy!" Lily shrieked, scrambling off her chair and launching herself at Ella's legs. "You missed the caterpillar situation. It made a house, on a leaf." Ella hugged her daughter tightly, burying her face in her hair. "A house? That's amazing, Bug. I want to see it right after breakfast." Henry slid a plate of pancakes in front of her. "Morning, how did you sleep?" "Like the dead," Ella said, taking a grateful sip of coffee. "Any news?" Henry's phone, sitting on the counter, buzzed. He picked it up. His eyebrows shot up. "Speak of the devil," he said. "That was an email from Amelia Sinclair, sent at 4 a.m. "What's it say?" She's groveling. "Dr. Reed, Mr. Reed, I want to reiterate my deepest apologies. I've already spoken to our CEO, Mr. Patterson. He will be attempting to contact you personally today to offer his own apology. We have suspended Mr. Larson without pay, pending his termination. We have also suspended the other 2 agents at the gate, including Sandra, for failing to intervene." "Sandra?" Ella felt a pang of guilt. She seemed scared. "She was," Henry agreed. "But I was just following orders isn't a defense, Eve. It's an excuse. Our regulations and their own company policy mandate that any agent can report or stop a clear policy violation. She watched him take your passport. She watched him deny you boarding after your ticket was confirmed. She said nothing. That's called complicity." He continued reading. "They've already proactively pulled the complaint files. They've found 27 other incidents involving Chad Larson in the last year alone. All similar. All passengers of color. They're trying to get ahead of our investigation." "Will it work?" "No," Henry said simply. "It just confirms our case. They're admitting guilt. They're just trying to control the financial damage. But the DOT, they don't care about apologies. They care about patterns. And this is the clearest pattern I've ever seen." Later that day, the CEO of Global Airways, a man named Robert Patterson, did indeed call. His voice was smooth, practiced, and dripping with contrition. He offered Ella 500,000 frequent flyer miles, a lifetime upgrade to their highest status, and a personal check for $10,000 to compensate for her distress. Ella, with Henry sitting beside her, listening on speaker, was polite. "Mr. Patterson," she said, her voice cool. "I appreciate the gesture. But I will be declining your offer. I'm not interested in your airline's perks. I'm interested in what you're going to do to ensure that the woman who comes after me, the one who doesn't have an FAA investigator on speed dial, won't have her life ruined by one of your employees." There was a stunned silence. Patterson had clearly expected her to take the money. I see," he stammered. "We are. As I told Ms. Sinclair, we are implementing mandatory top-to-bottom bias and de-escalation training immediately." "That's a start," Ella said. "But my husband's office will be in touch about the rest, and I will be filing my own formal complaint with the Department of Transportation. Thank you for your call." She hung up. Henry smiled. "That's my girl." 3 months passed. The Chicago winter had given way to a damp, uncertain spring. For Ella, life had been a blur of patience, research, and trying to process the trauma of that day. For Henry, it had been a blur of depositions, file reviews, and building a case so airtight it was bulletproof. The explosion happened on a Tuesday morning. Ella was in her office at the hospital, reviewing patient charts, when her phone began to vibrate on the desk. It didn't just buzz once. It lit up with a cascade of notifications, texts from colleagues, emails from friends, news alerts from every major outlet. She clicked on the first link. The headline, stark and bold, filled her screen. "Global Airways faces records. Fine after FAA investigation uncovers systemic discrimination at O'Hare Hub." Her breath caught. She scrolled. The article, citing anonymous FAA sources and passenger witnesses, laid out the entire sordid affair. It detailed how a senior gate supervisor, Chad Larson, was caught in a fraud for upgrades scheme that almost exclusively targeted minority passengers. It described, in humiliating detail, how he would lose their confirmed seats, resell them for cash to standby passengers, and pocket the fees. And then, the article detailed the karmic fate of his last attempt. It spoke of a prominent DC-based neurologist who was publicly humiliated and accused of fraud, only for the supervisor to learn moments later that her husband was a high-ranking FAA investigator already in the building conducting an audit on that very hub. The story was visceral, and it was everywhere. On the breakroom TV, she saw a financial news anchor discussing it. "Global stock is in freefall this morning, down 12 points on this, frankly, disgusting news out of Chicago. This is a PR nightmare of the highest order." The consequences, which had been grinding through the legal and corporate systems for 90 days, were finally made public. And they were not just consequences. They were a reckoning. Chad Larson's fate was the first to be sealed. His trial was a pathetic affair. The swaggering tyrant of Gate K-19 was gone, replaced by a sobbing, broken man in an ill-fitting suit. His defense, that he was overstressed and had a gambling addiction that made him confused about the upgrade fees, was methodically dismantled by the state's attorney. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Ann Clark, was visibly disgusted. At his sentencing, she looked down from the bench. "Mr. Larson, you were not just a gate agent. You were a representative of a federally regulated industry, entrusted with the safety and care of the public. You turned that trust into a weapon for your own petty bigotry and greed. You didn't just steal money, you stole people's dignity. You didn't just falsify records, you endangered the integrity of the secure flight program." He was found guilty on 14 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of unlawful imprisonment for the theft of Ella's passport. The sentence, 3 years in federal prison. As he was led away in handcuffs, his wails echoed in the courtroom, a pathetic final performance. Global Airways itself was brought to its knees. The $2.2 million fine was the headline, but the real damage was in the fine print. Henry's investigation, combined with the DOT's civil rights probe, resulted in a federal consent decree. For the next 5 years, Global Airways would be on probation. They were forced to fund an independent, court-appointed auditor, chosen by the FAA, who would have unlimited 24/7 access to all their systems, logs and employee records. They were also forced to implement a mandatory top-to-bottom bias and de-escalation training program for every single employee, from the baggage handlers to the CEO. The cost of the program and the auditor, Henry gleefully told Ella, would be billed directly to Global and was projected to cost them upwards of $15 million. As Amelia Sinclair, the vice president of Midwest Operations, was unceremoniously terminated. The investigation proved she had been aware of at least 9 previous complaints against Larson. She had buried them all, classifying them as customer service disputes to protect her hub's on-time departure statistics and her own performance bonus. Her career in aviation was over. Sandra, the complicit agent, was also fired. Ella had, in fact, named her in the civil lawsuit she filed against the airline. During her deposition, Sandra broke down, admitting, "I knew it was wrong. Mr. Larson, he was so intimidating. I didn't want him to yell at me." Ella's lawyer was merciless. "So you valued your comfort over my client's civil rights, over her very freedom, when he accused her of a federal crime." Sandra lost her job, and a significant portion of the civil settlement came directly from her. And then there was Brenda Hatcher, the woman in the pink tracksuit who had sneered, "Some people are so entitled." Another passenger, a college student sitting 3 gates down, had filmed the entire initial confrontation on his phone. He had posted it to TikTok, where it sat with a few hundred views until the news story broke. Then it exploded. The video went viral, with millions of views. The audio was crystal clear. Chad's sneering voice, Ella's calm, firm defense, and penetrating the crowd noise, Brenda's sharp, nasal comment. The internet, in its own form of swift, brutal justice, identified her. Within hours, her name, her employer, a high-end real estate firm in Naperville, and her work phone number were public. The firm's Yelp and Google pages were flooded with 1-star reviews. My realtor called a black doctor entitled for having a valid ticket. Would give 0 stars. Apparently, this firm supports racial profiling. Her boss, facing a sudden and catastrophic brand implosion, called her into his office. She was fired by lunchtime, 1 year later. The snow was falling softly on the streets of Washington, D.C., muffling the sound of the city. Ella, in a stunning midnight blue evening gown, stood at a podium. The room was filled with lawyers, activists, and philanthropists. She was the keynote speaker at the annual gala for the Travelers' Justice Initiative, a non-profit that offered legal aid to victims of travel discrimination, an organization she now helped fund. "My name is Dr. Ella Reed," she said, her voice ringing with a quiet authority she hadn't known she possessed a year ago. "I am a neurologist. I am a mother. I am a wife. And on March 14th of last year, I was a hostile female with fraudulent documents. I was told that people like me didn't belong. I was humiliated, and I was detained. I was lucky. My cavalry, my husband, was in the building. But as I stood there, I thought of all the people who don't have cavalry, the people whose planes leave without them, the people who end up in a holding cell, not in a first-class seat. That is why we are here tonight." The applause was thunderous. As she stepped off the stage, Henry was waiting with a kiss. "You were magnificent, Eve." "Dr. Reed?" a voice said. They turned. Standing before them was a man who looked older, greyer, and infinitely more tired than his photos. It was Robert Patterson, the former CEO of Global Airways. He had resigned 2 months after the scandal broke. to pursue other opportunities. "Mr. Patterson," Ella said, her voice perfectly neutral. I wanted to—" "Your speech was remarkable," he stammered, holding a glass of sparkling water. He wasn't a guest. He was wearing a board member's name tag. Ella's eyebrows rose. "You're on the board." He nodded, looking at his shoes. "I resigned from Global 2 days after our phone call. What you said, when you refused the miles, the money, you said you wanted to know what I would do for the next person. It stuck with me. I realized the rot in the company. It went all the way to the top. It went to me. I had built a culture that prioritized profits over people." He looked her in the eye. "So, I left. And I'm trying to fix what I helped break. This organization is one of my primary recipients. I'm funding the new legal task force. I wanted you to know. And I wanted to apologize, face to face. What Chad Larson did was monstrous. What I allowed to happen was inexcusable." Ella studied him for a long moment. There was no defense, no evasion, only a deep, profound regret. She looked at Henry, who just watched her, his expression supportive. Ella extended her hand. Patterson took it, his grip grateful. "That's a start, Mr. Patterson," Ella said. "Keep working." He nodded, speechless, and moved away. Later, as they walked to their car, the valet pulling it around, Henry put his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "You know," he murmured into her hair, "I still can't decide what was more satisfying. Watching Thompson cuff Larson, or watching that billionaire grovel at your feet." Ella laughed, a sound that was finally, truly, free of the shadow of Gate K-19. "You didn't just get him fired, Eve," Henry said, his voice full of awe. "You got him to repent and pay for everyone else's justice, too. You are hands down the scariest person I know." Ella leaned her head on his shoulder as they got into the warm car. "Good," she whispered, watching the snow fall on the Capitol dome. "Let's go home." And that's the story of how a petty tyrant's disgusting abuse of power blew up in his face in the most spectacular way possible. Chad Larson thought he was king of his little gate, but he forgot that every passenger has a story, and some have connections he never saw coming. He didn't just get fired. He was investigated, arrested, and served hard time, while his entire airline was brought to its knees by the very people it was supposed to serve. This is a reminder that karma isn't always instant. But when it hits, it can be devastating. What do you think? Was Chad's punishment fitting for his crime? Have you ever seen a Karen or a Chad on a power trip get their comeuppance in real time? Let me know your stories in the comments below. If you loved this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, and definitely subscribe to the channel for more true stories of karma and consequence. Click that bell so you never miss an update.